Okay, let's think about one other thing here about this curve, and it's a curvy curve. You notice that we gave up 200 guns and we got 800 roses. Remember that? It was a couple of slides ago. We gave up 200 guns and we got 800 roses. Let's give up 200 more guns. Let's give up 200 more guns. Well, I'm going to get more roses. But interestingly enough, I get a lot less. Now I'm only getting 300 more roses. So before I gave up 200 roses and I got 800. Now I'm gave up 200 guns and I got 800 roses. Now I'm giving up 200 guns and I'm only going to get 300 more roses. And there's a bunch of reasons for that, and one simple reason is there are resources that we have, land and labor and capital, that are better suited for making guns than for making roses. There are people who are better suited for making guns than for making roses. When I'm mostly making guns, there's some people making guns who are better rose makers, and when we transfer them to making roses, we get a real benefit from doing that. But at some point, we're going to start taking away people who are good at guns and maybe not so good at roses, and as we move them along, we're going to get less and less and less. Okay? We call this increasing opportunity cost. As we move down the curve, or as we move up the curve, either way, we get increasing opportunity cost. As we give up more and more and more guns, we get fewer and fewer and fewer roses. In other words, the cost of making roses goes up and up and up as we go more and more to just making roses, and there's fewer and fewer guns. So when I'm down here, I can give up 200 guns and I'm not really going to get hardly any roses for it. Okay? The more guns I give up, the more roses I have, the harder it is for me to give up more guns and get more roses. So now I gave up 200 guns, I got 300 roses. Each rose cost me 2/3 of a gun, right? That's a lot more than it cost me before. I'm only getting 1.5 roses per gun, where before I was getting 4 roses per gun. Okay? Increasing opportunity cost. So that increasing opportunity cost can also be called increasing marginal cost. We're getting an increasing marginal cost here. The marginal cost is the cost of one more. So the cost of one more rose keeps going up and up and up and up, because as I'm taking resources out of guns, first I take the resources out of gun production that are really good at making roses, and eventually, though, I'm going to have to take those resources out of making guns that aren't very good at making roses, and the value of getting more roses is going to go down as I give up these guns. It's going to cost me more and more and more per rose to get more roses. Increasing marginal cost. So if we graph it, we only have 2 points, but that's enough, right? Just assume it's a straight line, and we can talk about that later. But the first thing we made was 1/4, which is 0.25. The second move we made was 2/3, which is 0.67. So you can see that at 400 roses, the price of a rose was a 2.25 guns, and at 1,200 roses, the price of another rose was 0.67 guns. So the price, the cost, marginal cost here of additional roses keeps going up, and if we draw a line, we get a nice upward sloping marginal cost line. You're all going to become econ majors after you finish this course, and you're going to spend a lot of time in your life drawing upward sloping marginal cost curves, because that's what we do. Okay? The marginal cost comes from the slope of the PPF, which is changing. Okay, so guess what? If we have marginal costs, we also need to have marginal benefits. Now, what's true about marginal benefits? Well, our benefits come from our preferences, right? What we like and don't like. If you have friends, and I'm assuming you have real friends, not just, social media people who claim to be your friend, but actual real friends. When you talk to people, you know that there are some people who think the government should be providing free education, and the government should be providing daycare for everybody, and the government should be provided health care, and the government should be, and they think there should be a lot of government doing a lot of things. Then you have other friends who think the government should be involved in any of that stuff, that the government's involved in too much stuff, and we'd be way better off if we have a smaller government. So all of us have our preferences. How much government do we think is right? How much private sector? What's the importance of all that? So we have our preferences, and different people are going to hope that we're at different places on that PPF. When we put together all the preferences in a society, and that's hard to do, but if we could actually put together the preferences in our society, what would we find? Well, we'd find this. We'd find that the more roses I give you, the less you value additional roses. You have diminishing marginal benefit. Okay, let's say that again. You have diminishing marginal benefit. I give you a pizza, you're happy. I give you a second pizza, you're more happy, but not as happy as you were for the second pizza. I give you a third pizza, you're like, okay. I give you a fourth pizza, maybe you're still, I give you that fifth pizza, you're like, dude, I have to carry this stuff, stop it. Okay, so the more I give you of that thing, the less value there is in me giving you more of it. So we have the marginal benefit going down, the marginal cost going up. So the more we do something, the marginal benefit of that goes down, the marginal cost of it goes up. Let's imagine now what's going to happen. It's going to be so much fun! Marginal costs and marginal benefits, let's put them together. It's exciting, yes? We have this crossing lines that looks kind of like a X. That's the economist gang sign, that X. If an economist ever dunks on you and comes around and gives you the gang sign, it'll be that X, marginal cost and marginal benefit. Okay? Logically, where should we go? Well, if I'm over here, the marginal benefit exceeds the marginal cost. That means the benefits of doing more is higher than the cost of doing more. So I should do more. If I'm over here, the cost of doing more exceeds the benefits I get of more. I should be doing less. If the cost of doing more exceeds the benefits of doing more, definitely don't want to do more, and I'm almost certainly need to do less. But there's one special point right there. That point, which I cleverly labeled with the letter Q, is the quantity of roses where the cost of doing more is equal to the benefits of doing more. We have an equality of marginal benefit and marginal cost. That turns out to be the optimal point. That's where we want to be. Okay? Now, you have that whole PPF. That PPF is just showing us costs. It's not showing us benefits. But if we figure out costs and then in our mind stick it on that graph, we're going to get it somewhere like this, where there's a Q place, a place for that Q, and that Q tells us where we should be on the PPF and how many guns and how many roses we should produce. Is that exciting? It's exciting, yes? Okay, so that PPF is showing us the costs of things. We can add on the side to that the benefits, bring those benefits into the costs and figure out where to be. If we just have the PPF, we can't tell what the best point is because the PPS is all about those costs, that opportunity cost. If we figure out what our benefits are, what our preferences are, then we can figure out where we should be on the PPF. But this is, in the real world, that is an extraordinarily difficult thing to do. Okay. So, how do we apply this? How does it apply in the world? Well, it turns out that we can use this PPF framework to tell us why we gain from trade. The PPF we've drawn so far is about one country and what is optimal in that one country. But we don't live in a one country world. We live in a world where we can trade with other countries. where if we need more roses, we could get them from China, or we need more guns, we could get them from Germany, or if Germany need guns, they can get them from us. So how does the fact that we can trade affect our optimality in that production possibility frontier? Good question. So we have these two guys over here. They're both old dead guys. The first old dead guy on the far right, you know him, that's Adam Smith. 1776, publishes The Wealth of Nations, kind of starts the whole free market economics movement thing. The guy next to him is a guy named David Ricardo, who published his big book in 1815. David Ricardo was a well-to-do stockbroker in London at the age of 14. Let me repeat that. He was a well-respected, well-to-do stockbroker in London, and he started at the age of 14. Okay, so probably a pretty bright guy, just saying. Their theories are based on the idea that trades between people or trades between countries are voluntary. And if you're voluntarily trading, if we are selling soybeans to China and that we're buying computer parts or car parts back from them, we're choosing to do that. And because we're choosing to do it and we're voluntarily doing it, we can assume that we're better off because we're doing it. Okay, could be wrong, but that's our assumption behind all this. Adam Smith came up with a theory called we call absolute advantage. He didn't call it that, but we call absolute advantage. And then David Ricardo took that theory and made it more advanced, and we call that theory comparative advantage. Okay? And it's all about why we should trade and why free trade is better than not free trade. Right? Economists don't agree on much. Let me be clear about this. They've done surveys of economists, and there aren't actually that many things that 90 or 95% of economists all agree on. One of those things that 90 to 95% of economists agree on is that free trade is better than controlled trade. We like free trade, and it's because of these two guys and their theory.